Right. Record that.
I said 3 minutes.
Right.
Right, so you can do the intro there.
That's us back.
A few technical difficulties, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You want me to make it a wee bit bigger? Smaller?
Make it a wee bit smaller if you
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just using somebody's phone, so just bear with us. There you go. That's all right.
Well, you said you had someone very important to say about the Trump situation, didn't you? With Conor McGregor. We'll kick it off with that. What was that? Trump played a blinder, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did indeed.
I mean, the way he handled it, revenge is a dish best served cold. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
he just completely hung out the whole Martin to dry, I think, didn't he?
yeah.
I mean, he didn't have him. He didn't have him teed up. He just had McGregor right in the wings, and then I just thought it was beautiful, you know.
Apparently, he only got an invite the day before, didn't he?
Who, McGregor?
Apparently,
Nobody knew he was going.
he knew he was going, but only he knew he was going. Obviously, he thought, me having Martin was a bit drab. Nobody knows him in America. So, it probably would have been better getting the wee leprechaun in.
Yeah.
The anti-Semite, who do you call him? The wee leprechaun, the
Michael D.
he probably had more name recognition. But no, I think he got a last minute invite because obviously he's got more name recognition because of the MMA and whatnot.
Yeah. There's been quite a lot to talk about. I mean, the cat is very clearly out of the bag now.
Yeah.
I think the mainstream is discussing the immigration issue now. And you've got Garron Noone, and then you got Black Paddy. Even he smells the coffee. He's changed his tune a bit.
Black Paddy don't mind him. Like he gets that advice on Facebook, says you pretending to be Irish,
Yeah.
I think he's been up there quite a while. Obviously he's not ethnically Irish.
Unlike Rosie O'Donnell, isn't it?
Yeah, she did what makes it return to the promised land,
Yeah.
Although some people think she's here in Democrat work, and EU work,
Well, that was one sort of thing I thought was good about Trump as well. And even though Rosie and all, there's a lot of Irish Americans who would not be Trump fans may actually end up coming back to Ireland, which is a sort of repopulate back.
Yeah.
So even though they're leftist, deranged, they're sort of Irish. They wouldn't hate Ireland. They would have an investment in it. They would have skin in the game.
Yeah.
They would like the sort of the British in Northern Ireland thing. They had no strategic interest, and they thought, well, they'll leave and let the Frost and Catterburg out amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas, even if she comes back as a leftist, left, right, and indifferent, and sort out the issues with Ireland, I think, instead of it's the foreign influence that sort of spoils the pudding.
Yeah. I think it is Irish Ireland's still very left leaning as well.
Well, it is.
Even it's an outlier in terms of Europe because the rest of Europe's going right, and Ireland's going left.
It's very late the party. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't even say Britain's going left. It's just like a way that system is, electoral system. I mean, Labour's vote actually got less in 2019 than what Jeremy Corbyn did. You know that there.
Yeah.
Farmer actually got less. So they're actually not going left.
They got 19%, I think.
Yeah, they got a lot less actually than Jeremy Corbyn. So it was just because the Tories were in complete shambles.
Well, they had to suffer. I think the Tories they totally failed on Brexit.
Yeah,
and they failed on immigration. And Boris Johnson had an absolute massive mandate, and we just
it's like a default thing,
So they had to go, but it was a coalition. It was a what's the term they used for a losers majority or something.
Losers majority, the losers went.
They didn't get in because they were loved to get in, sort of by default, because the other ones were so bad. But bad as the Tories were, they had to take a hit on that. As bad as Labour are, well, something like Mark is gonna, even though it's a bit of debate.
See, the thing about those big parties, and like UKIP had the same. They had about 4 million votes one year, and they didn't get a seat.
Yeah,
it's just if you have all your votes spread out, that's no good.
Yeah. We get a lot of second places.
There's no seconds. Nice guys don't come second. The British electoral system. Well, very Labour are. They have it off the tee. They maximise their vote. So just about winning in all those seats, But what about Rosie O'Donnell? She thought there was a bit of a conspiracy. She thinks that your man is on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Wizard of Oz, you have somebody in the background, in the piano.
Yeah.
She said the man who runs the internet is Trump's friend. So
Patrick Kenny's just so weak, he doesn't challenge him.
Yes, he runs the internet. So he runs everything, he runs the world.
But they just said it was like challenge, you know.
Lucky that Elon Musk wasn't a Jew. He said, "Oh, that's a bit of a stroke there." They run the world.
Yeah.
But I'm plus well, he won all the swing states, so that's a bit fishy.
Yeah. It was,
That's a
yeah. But then that was the thing, was the threatening pause. And it was
Yeah.
like, and Donald Trump has a load of friends that are sex, whatever,
Yeah.
offenders. And then silence, and then the crowd goes, oh, crap, not right, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's like 20 pieces. Why the fuck to be a better? It's from women that are absolute idiots.
Even the wokey ones are sort of one that's scratching their head.
Yeah, they need to find the other. Like, no, you can have her.
So you were saying that even the left wing don't like her or something?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at Twitter, anything related to that there, and there's no tweets at all in her defense.
Yeah.
There's 2 tweets saying America wasn't sending their best.
Yeah.
But
It's like Colin Eastwood, he puts tweets up about making the appointed mayor of Derry. Not one single comment supporting it.
yeah,
I mean, you wonder that he got that. I mean, not one single supporting comment.
yeah.
You know,
I think because she said she was the not only was the head of some tribe, but she was also a Derry girl. I mean, you can't be both. Make your mind up. It's like you can't be in this tribe and also a Derry girl. You just can't be both. You can't be everywhere at one time,
Yeah.
But
That was just a little bit controversial, But the point is, again, she plays the kind of race card. If somebody was jailed, actually, it's not about the race of the person at all. It's the fact that she was appointed over the heads of two SLP councillors resigned over.
they resigned because they wanted to be the first.
There's no process. He did that he did that for virtue signalling points.
But as I said the other day, the SLP, the parties want to be the first. So I think a woman, Miss Virtuous herself, I will say keep on calling. Yeah, well, she was the first person to speak Irish in the House of Commons. So she wants to be the first at doing something. So one of us going to be the first one. So obviously, Murray was the first black mayor in Ireland.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
but the Sinn Féin put a thing up saying that they've now got Irish things on Central Station in Belfast.
Yeah,
which I said, okay, fair enough, but it's a pity that the Carnegie Centre's now got an iPass Centre. I mean, what's more important,
Yeah, an iPass Centre, I know.
There's nowhere left, like a lovely unspoiled sort of Irish countryside. The rugged beauty of the Guildhall Irish iPass Centre in the middle of it.
You got signs in Irish, I need to remind you, it used to be Irish. But I think some of the St. Patrick's parades, it's a spot the Whitefields,
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback about that, but even people are saying that Dublin are, I just saying they were down, they're not going to set foot in again,
Yeah.
The crane, not even talking about the race of the crane, there are feral people running around, it's a bit of a hell at the minute.
Well, they always have been Dublin always have been a dangerous city. I mean, I don't think some people come on to the most safest city up until 10 years ago, so I disagree with that one as well. But
it was safe compared to Europe.
Compared to European standards, there wasn't as many. You get more probably random stuff happening in Dublin now. Whereas in Dublin, you walk in the wrong bar, you say the wrong thing, not you could get this trouble, but now you could be just walking on the street and get attacked,
Yeah, and they're stabbing people at one door. There was one week there when there were 7 stabbings, and this was all by immigrant stabbings, and that refugee, that one that was over from, he was
Algeria, or is it a different one?
No, there's one.
Is that many? You get them all mixed up.
But there was one that he was wanted for rape in Italy. He was the one that was killed, but he'd been wanted for rape. So he was stabbed. Why was he out partying? He's out partying, going to concerts and stuff as a refugee. I was thinking, hang on, so you can see why they're coming over,
Yeah.
He was the one that was murdered.
How did they get into the country as well?
Well, that's the question. I mean, where's the vetting?
Where's the vetting? Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you go abroad and you get to the other side, you get to the airport, they check your passport. Obviously, they run against different databases, make sure you haven't been done for a crime anywhere else. And then they go, yeah, go ahead there to the big gate, So what happened? How did he get it? What's the database for them checking? It wasn't the
were they checking?
Were they checking any database whatsoever? They just get a free pass going in there,
Yeah. Well, and back to Trump, I do think he played it really well with Elon Martin, right?
Yeah.
He just
even me help. I don't know who Rosie Donald was.
He didn't actually, yeah. And they referred to him as the Irish gentleman there. I thought he was going to get the treatment, the Zelensky treatment. I thought they had, but I thought he was going to get that treatment, but he didn't. but he kind of he got one over on him. He hung him out to dry by stealth
Mhm.
because he sort of had that up his sleeve where your man was coming over and it completely upstaged. Michael Martin and Harris. They were doing interviews on the street.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, Conor McGregor's in the White House,
Yeah.
Trump's show where and he's probably the only chance there is of highlighting the fact that immigration is now talked about as a mainstream debate.
Obviously, Michael Martin doesn't deal with normal people, and he doesn't talk about what everybody talks about. I'm sure. I think McGregor mentioned it in his speech. He said he employs 300 people. I'm trying to think who it was.
That's right.
He has a whiskey company, and then he has a few pubs as well. So he has an extensive portfolio there, like, you know. So he would obviously be talking to the punters and employees, and they'll be saying, telling them stories, and then maybe, you know, so obviously he's got his finger on the pulse.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Conor McGregor, we've said it before. I mean, he's not an angel. Like, I mean, he's done a lot of bad things. I mean, I'll call it out. I mean, he did attack a guy in the pub for not drinking his whiskey. Turned down that. And he did admit that was wrong. I mean, he did attack a wee mascot in America, an American football game.
It reminds me of like the Mike Tyson. Remember Mike Tyson's great?
Yeah.
But he had a bit of a hard edge to him, and he was a bit rough around the edges. But actually,
it's like separate the message from the messenger. I mean,
message from the messenger.
The message is perfectly. You cannot doubt what he said. What he said was perfectly correct.
But even Mike Tyson, he had a checkered past in jail. I think he was even done for. Actually, he was actually.
I think he was
prosecuted for rape. I think all those evidence should know the difference. Prosecution is different from.
It was a civil case. It was a
civil case. Yeah.
Which begs the question if there was a strong. Well, obviously there wasn't strong enough evidence for a criminal case. Otherwise, if he was done for it, he'd be in jail. So I think it's technically incorrect to say he's a rapist. I mean, I could be corrected on that.
So they even said that Tom was a rapist. Or should that be honest? They weren't able to pull that.
Well, according to Rosie, the whole like
completely. Who was it? No, it was your woman Ginger Belt, Copperhead. We call Copper from the Field for Profit.
Or one of the double barrel people, Coppinger.
Coppinger, yeah. I think that it's Copperhead. I have to call Coppinger. It's a bit of an English literature term for that. Yeah. But she says in the White House, two rapists met each other. Sounds like a try to a joke, you know. Yeah. Two rapists go to the White House and meet each other and talk about. But
the meltdown, the meltdown of the left is glorious to watch. You know?
Yeah, but I think it's just Nicky because she said it in the oil. I think they have parliamentary privilege.
Yeah, the parliament
privilege. Yeah,
you say whatever you want. Yeah,
you say whatever you want.
But the newspapers were actually saying that as well. You know.
Yeah, Trump should actually get it better and start prosecuting some people here, like, you know, they call the rapists, and obviously suing them anyway. I think, and also McGregor has grounds for suing there as well.
Well, he is actually appealing the case, the civil case against them.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like for example, think of all those civil rights of Martin Luther King. Apparently, he had a bit of a checker pass. He was done for assault as well. Assault women. You won't go see if you call that rapist, start a civil rights campaign. Oh, Martin Luther King. You won't refer to him as a rapist all the time.
Yeah.
Or Nelson Mandela. He said, the guy is married to that rapist and nonce, Winnie Mandela. He could do that with everybody. JFK, he had a bit of a pass to women, you know. So totally, this is the way you do it. That's the new just call everybody a nonce and a bit.
Yeah, was no games at all. I mean, it's just the decided now that they don't want to like Trump, and Trump's no worse than JFK. You know, they're actually quite similar in a way. You know.
Yeah. And even Gareth, he had rumours about being a bit of young boys. So I mean, all these great figures.
JFK was trying to stop wars. I mean, let's give Trump some credit. I mean, he is trying to. God forbid if Harris had won that election, we were never going to see that. That French warfare was just going to continue. It was never going to get anything safe with Ukraine, you know.
Yeah, I think what it really says that. I mean, the Democrats were good to Israel, but they're also good to their enemies like Iran, or you know. I'm sure Obama gave them loads of money as well. So Trump, so that's where they're getting all that money to fucking them pay their proxies, you know. But yeah, I mean,
Trump is trying. Like, that's to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, he said when you don't. There's no guarantee, especially in international diplomacy.
No.
So he's there to mark it down. I think Putin is involved in his court still.
Yeah. Putin's playing hardball about it, but I mean, Trump is trying to end it, you know.
You know, when we get the extra vaccine, that deck Andrew Neil was on the time video. I hit that time video. He was saying about he listened to what he last week. He was calling. I think Wickoff is calling an absolute idiot. And brainless because he said it a nice thing about Putin. He says we just talking to Putin when he heard Trump got shot. Putin went and said a prayer with his patriarch, with his priest, Orthodox priest, the next day.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with that? There, if you're trying to build a relationship, you try to be cordial with them.
Trying to make a date.
Trying to make it. That's why Ronald Reagan's so successful. Won every state bar one, 1984, because people knew he and then he was great with people, great communicator.
Yeah.
He was great with Gorbachev. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How the hell he took Gorbachev around the end in communism or something else like that?
Yeah. But what do you think of all the ones that are completely all the haters that just say, we're standing hard to give war a chance, all the left about Ukraine that don't want to say anything. Well, but let's just give part of the argument, give peace a chance,
Yeah.
It's a bit like the Northern Ireland thing, again, it's not going to be a perfect peace, but not to take on board the peculiarities of that situation. If you can get some sort of a peace process, all the ones that were pro Northern Ireland peace process seem to be against any sort of peace process in Ukraine, I think.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's just like, if there was a nuclear war and because of Trump, and we all got zapped, people going, well, they can see he's going to blame Trump for the nuclear bomb,
Yeah.
I think they just want Trump to fail, irrespective of the cost to world peace. It's just completely idiot. It's insane.
I'm just going to check the messages on the other front.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, I think Karen's all along there. Hi, Karen. Yes, we have a few technical difficulties. Yeah, so you have to bear with us.
The traffic is pretty busy coming into Belfast City Centre.
Yeah, so we can't really check the messages, unfortunately. So we'll get back to them later. But hey, Karen, and all our viewers there. Yeah, so at least the man is trying, and he comes out with some of the Palestine thing. That is a bit,
Well, just before we go to Palestine, apparently I heard that the Joe Biden's team hadn't spoke to Putin in 3.5 years. A war that could possibly lead to a world war. You haven't even bothered to make contact with with Russia. I mean, that is an absolute disgrace. They're so cavalier with world peace, the Democrats.
Yeah.
And
nothing to say here.
The fact that Trump wants to actually avoid a world war is like, we're
getting dangerously close to it. Because they were firing attacking missiles into mainland Russia.
Yeah.
And Putin came back the next.
We're actually practically at a Cuba missile crisis.
Yeah.
Where Ukraine is the Cuba.
Yeah.
Only America is using Ukraine.
People need to realise how close we could actually get. Putin is not going to be pushed around forever.
Yeah.
And I just think it's not worth a nuclear war about this. And Ukraine is unfortunately going to have to maybe. It's not like it has to there has to be a compromise there.
Yeah. But
there's a compromise in the Northern Ireland peace process, so there's precedent for compromise.
But Ukraine was literally run out of people. I mean, they're
all over here.
Yeah, well, I mean, for fighting age men, at least they're fighting the women's here, the children's here, and the
men here,
men here. But I mean, rich men in their 50s and 60s, they probably get up till about the weapon stick onto the battlefield. It's getting ridiculous. They run out of people, they just can't do it in that war, And the fact that he's asking for money for more to keep it going. It's just like when you're in a casino and 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You go, I can win this. Maybe another £100 I could just keep on going here, It's just like a man who's addicted to gambling in a casino. That's what Slansky was. I mean, this is never going to end if he could keep someone getting money.
Yeah. It's just somebody had the talent,
Look, you've had your chance. 3 years later, there's 1 million people dead, and they shouldn't have been dead. You shouldn't have listened to Boris Johnson when he went over 3 years ago.
He scuppered the deal,
Scuppered the deal, yeah. And the fact that nobody's pulled him just shows you that.
In a way, he was led on the garden path by Biden. They were all saying yes, giving him everything he wanted, and then he couldn't. Trump came along, and it just all stopped. Boom.
Yeah.
But then the way Trump put it was like he was playing Biden like a fiddle, But then where's all the money gone? All the money there. I know. Well, it could have been on time to think of these tunes going to start.
Start off a wee tune.
when he was playing Biden for a fool, give me whatever, and then he's not getting it,
Yeah.
The gravy train, where did all the money go?
Yeah.
Trump's asking the questions. You were given all this money, so they're skimming off the top of it. A lot of people in the Ukraine thing are having lavish lifestyles now.
Well, there are some figures that you can't be believing, but only about a quarter of the money they actually got went towards military stuff. I mean, it was just a huge skimming.
Yeah.
Between all his entourage, So
that's obviously going to be a lot of money misappropriated. I mean, war is money,
I mean, Ukraine gives some of the African countries run for money for the index of the most corrupt country in the world. They're out there for Europe like that.
But it's almost like the news becomes quite. I think the Northern Ireland news, because they're so good and peaceful, it's become quite boring news,
Yeah.
And the media have nothing to talk to you about when there's no war going on.
Yeah.
So they have a vested interest in keeping it going. Like I know from my media background that bad news is good is news. If it bleeds, it leads. They need war to talk to you about. If that thing stops, they're going to have it. Right? So they wanted to keep it going as well.
Well, obviously Jimmy Dore, and he won't agree with a lot of stuff, especially Israel Palestine, but he was saying that the American media, all they talked about was Nazi this, Nazi that with Ukraine. And then once the war broke out, never mentioned again. There's no Nazis anymore. So they could, it is funny anyway.
Although Putin said that. Putin says that he wants to denazify.
Well, I can understand when he means that Nazi, the most overused word at the moment these days. Everybody's a Nazi. If you're not a Nazi, then you're wrong with you. But what I mean by being Nazi is because in the eastern part of Ukraine, there's a lot of Russian-speaking people, and Kiev tried to, basically de-Russify them. So they weren't allowed to speak Russian in schools and use it in street signs and road signs and shop signs. So they're basically trying to take away their culture. And that created the war.
They even talked about Musk as a Nazi, and he said, "Well, no, I didn't invade Poland, and I didn't send people to gas chambers. So why are you calling me a Nazi?"
Well, sometimes it makes it up. No, you can't get the same Nazi.
We can't finish right talking about your old mate. Yeah. He was out talking about there's big march. There was a big march in Belfast this week. The sort of the Protestant Catholic side were getting together again. Of course,
sticking the order. Everything came together.
That's what scores in the paid opposition, whether Jerry Kelly comes, they're far right fascists. He knows the word fascist.
Yeah, basically,
he's not strong. It has to be.
I can guarantee you have a drinking game. He'll say racist, fascist, working class. They'll get the working class in. And what's it when he says? There's 4 words he always says. Racist, fascist, far right. That's far right. Yeah,
that's far right.
And working class
together. Far right fascist Nazis.
And the working class has to.
If you get all 4, you get the full house, don't you?
You get the. I have to drink 2 big drinks as well, so you could get blocked by the end of his.
So you get speak. You fill up your bingo card,
yeah.
But
it wasn't very good about there's randomly.
He got threatened as well. Like, let's be honest, And then they said, so West Belfast is beginning to sort of come out again and say that they're not necessarily in favour of it.
Yeah, but I think it's a few people like put slogans on the wall, and he's made out to be a big fascist group. He's sort of like embellished it, But I think even on about there's 3,000 empty homes in Belfast. And that's the answer. That's the answer to our problem.
But the logical extension of that is that there's every farmhouse and outhouse and every shed got to be full to the gilders with people from the whole world to come in. Just because there's a few empty houses. What about starting off with the Irish homeless first?
Yeah.
Does that mean there's another house, or let's bring another 20 immigrants?
Yeah.
That's taking your house off you. That is basically communism.
But as how do you know there's 3,000 empty homes? That's impossible to know. B, somebody might own those homes.
Yeah.
I mean, they may be empty, but somebody might
under that, you're not allowed to have more than one home.
So you like to just go and squat in a house and then give it to a foreigner.
Just because people always say Ireland is not full now. Well, okay, compared to pre-famine times, Ireland there are less people living here than there were there. But look where everybody was living. I want to go back to that.
I give you an example. Apparently, in Australia, now a continent, there's like 20 million people. The population of Holland, they've got a housing crisis. They think there's a wee bit of space there, a good bit of space in Australia compared to Ireland.
Yeah.
But it's only like we're just talking in cities. People that live in the city don't want to live in the outback. And similarly for Ireland, people don't want to live in the bog. They want to live in the town of cities, and there's only a handful. Usually in the coast of Ireland, So,
but I think that the far left debate, the Jerry Carroll debate, is beginning to fall. People are sort of saying like, we've had enough of that now. We want to. There's a different.
But I just said the same thing over and over
It
again.
is. It is. I mean, that's what it was. He put it to him. Not one supportive comment was given to him.
Yeah.
About his turning up at that counter protest, and people say it's a paid opposition.
Yeah, they are.
NGO. What's that one? USA is one of them.
USA, yeah.
It's like a paid opposition.
And they always have the same placards, and they're all professionally made.
Yeah. Whereas the other, well, to be fair, I thought there wasn't that many out that came out for that protest night. I mean,
Only the one of the can't believe that there's 4 times as many doing the anti-immigration protest. But I mean, what's wrong with people turning up and just having a rally, just talking? I mean, is that really threatening for you?
well, it is
I
for
mean,
them.
it's for them. What's the problem, like, you know?
Yeah.
Does that really get you out of bed in the morning? People that you don't disagree with have the temerity to have a wee small, you know, gathering in the city hall. Does that really get you out of bed in the morning? You know, it's pathetic.
Well, at least there's no trouble. I mean, that's the main thing.
I mean, the trade unions as well. What the hell are they doing there? They're supposed to be there to protect workers' rights. They're not there to call people fascist and racist who have, you know, don't like mass immigration. But that's completely random. Trade unions being there.
Yeah. Well, they recruit them, you know. So yeah. I sometimes think he's having a laugh. Right? I mean, he almost has a slight smirk on his face. It's almost like he is paid to say that, you know. Well, some people say like you wouldn't want your parents living next door to a whole load of refugees, you know. So why do you keep doing it? When he has that smirk, I sometimes do think, is he for real? Like, you know?
Well, apparently somebody put on it in one of the Twitters, one of the Tweets. They're putting out a picture of remember the Jimmy Young character, the trading guy, Billy Hull?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm trading guy, and I'm here to protect the work class and make sure everybody's happy. And he's not like that there. He's sort of like, he's very uncouth.
Yeah.
He just seems the same crap all the time.
It's like somebody with a carry on movies about that in all out in the strike.
Yeah.
Oh, we've no toilet roll right out the strike.
The strike, that's the carry on. Carry on.
Carry on. What was that one? At your convenience.
At your convenience, yeah. It was, yeah. Anytime there was a fight,
saucy body humor, yeah.
There was
even if it was, you know, the toilet roll was a classic one, you know, there was no, I'm getting on, but like, no, early strike.
But obviously, there's some people get in their roles and they just love the power and they just, like, you know, they want drama.
That's what intimidation, that's work or management intimidation, that's what they were taking the mic.
Yeah. And what they get as well, though, the immigration thing is because they slip these words in. It's like racist. How the hell are you racist? I mean, where do racist come from? So you must be racist if you don't like mass immigration and you don't like hundreds of people from the other side of the world wandering about a village. You know, it just go where they just say that everything they agree with. Racist, fascist, racist, fascist, racist, fascist. I mean, it is arguments from the brain dead. Like it's like the Walking Dead. You know what I mean? It's like in America universities just say the same thing to people that speak as fascist.
I've made this point before as well. Like Japan is 100% Japanese, but it's not racist.
Yeah.
There's no racism.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
I mean, the same with that Palestine as well. The fact that the Jews look white, that doesn't cause the Jews keep going, we're not white, but you look white, and that's the main thing you present as white.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, the Jews have too pale a skin, so obviously that comes across. Obviously, the Jews have to be more browner or something like that. There are more useless. They get a pass public, you know.
But the Palestinians, on St. Patrick's Day, they were out there with you know, Palestine March, and I made the point, well, what exactly has Palestine got to do with St. Patrick's Day?
I have no idea.
Christianity in Ireland, like.
Yeah. Apparently, there's
okay, somebody said that Christ was born in Palestine, but I don't really think that's a reason to bring half of Palestine into Ireland, like, is it?
Yeah.
Christianity came in, it's a bit of a tenuous.
There's about 14 genocides going on in the world. But I know they come all Middle East experts as well. You know, they say the same thing as well. There's 2 or 3 words you could have a drink again. Genocide.
One man's genocide and another person's, you know.
Genocide, what's the other one? Colonization. Right, colonization. Fascist, yeah. Racist Nazi. Yeah. Nazi as well.
Far right. Extreme right.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see what way it pans out. I think, you know, I think it's the narrative. Check into your late show.
Yeah.
If you can put up with the cringe fest, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, even Piers Morgan was something. He's nowhere near. He's pretty centrist, but even he had Katie sweating, you know.
he was on
And he went easy on him, you know.
Yeah, but yeah, that was. If you haven't seen it, watch that interview with Rosie O'Donnell. It's just a says most out of these things, and he does put her on it. It was
Because she comes across as angry. Like, he comes
Yeah.
across as angry. So, you know. And Trump or Katie always says this classic. And do you sense things like taking a turn for the worst in America?
yeah,
You know, teeing it up. I think things are taking a turn for the better, really.
yeah. What the fuck's he on about? Like, he's just. I mean, not a kid that was saying anything to make a shoe feel like, don't they? You know,
See, he's not coming from a journalistic background.
he's not. They
He's coming
never
from
seen
a
it.
comedy background.
They
He
never
doesn't
seen
know
it.
how to challenge. Takes everything they said face value.
Yeah,
And of course, his narrative was he just couldn't get over the fact that somebody would support Trump. You know,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
Piers Morgan, he went easy on about it. He was struggling, Katie, I think. You know,
Yeah, my Piers Morgan, he does it every day. He has people with extreme critical views, and he's always like trying to get that person in the middle kind of thing. So he is good for like finding the balance, you know.
yeah.
Piers Morgan, but yeah, Katie was out of his depth right there.
Oh,
But I mean, Katie comes from like, in fairness, he did well for himself. He was like, he started comedy in the Empire of the Botanic,
yeah.
and then he got a big break in Nolan BBC. Then he moved over to the UK BBC.
They did well. Yeah,
He did well.
Drum and County Down.
Yeah,
Or County Down. But I mean, and his father was murdered.
and he had a bit of it.
Was always tragic.
A tragic
It always
story.
gets mentioned. Mary
Yeah.
Grace goes on every year and reminds him that. I mean, thank
Yeah.
God she's going to remind him that his father
Yeah.
was murdered. I mean,
Yeah.
I think he probably knows that, you know.
And the fact that his father's murdered before he went to university, he was able to do the comedy thing with that.
I'm not talking about. I don't know.
Yeah, he did well.
Yeah.
But certainly from
In terms of forensic journalistic debate, it's not there, you know.
no, I think it's the way that show is. They would have somebody like who really like entertainment.
Somebody like Andrew Neil would actually be very good at that, you know. You don't
Well,
like him, but
I don't like Andrew Neil.
well, he's a hell of a lot better. Some people said he was bad, but I thought he was quite forensic the way he dismantles people's arguments now.
Yeah. The thing is, Andrew Neil,
Because it's paperwork and his data right up there, you know.
he was given off the fact that your man, as I say, Witkoff, we call him Steve Witkoff, that he doesn't have enough experience to be Trump's main negotiator.
Mm.
Because he's and he says, "Oh, you should be talking to people," you know. Well, when's that been? I think you don't talk to your enemies. What did the great John James say? Jaw,
Better war.
better war, you know.
What do you think of this latest thing about this WhatsApp thing that's kicking about?
That's probably nothing. Just Piers Morgan had a real he had a show on there, and they were all arguing about it. I think somebody called Goldberg was at it, but they forgot it was the wrong Goldberg. Goldberg is a Democrat. So the next day, but I think Iman Goldberg could be done for treason, because if you accidentally come across sensitive information, you have to you can't spread that information. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Disseminate that information. So he could be in hot water. You know.
Yeah.
Look, I for information and I agree.
Well, that's true.
You know.
Well, that's
Yeah, mate, that's treason.
That's classified.
Classified information. You're chopping the enemy.
Yeah.
You know.
But there's. I see that you're got green rugby on. That's very good. And congratulations. You have you're more of a slimline. You're not so much big, you know. You're more like
yeah.
I have to say, I think our fan base right was going to be. That's not the same guy from the last time, you know.
Yeah.
So
You're
much into the sofa.
The sofa that. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good, you know.
Yeah. No, I've been a little bit since last time.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's hard to recognize almost, you know.
Yeah. I don't know, it's back. I maybe look a wee bit older, maybe the way off. You could be, you know, wrinkly.
Sometimes it affects. Yeah.
With your father, you're like a big chubby, you know, guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, big fat people don't live the long ages. You know? Remember Uncle Buck with John Candy?
Yeah, and the dark guy, Andy
43,
Fordham.
43, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Andy Fordham. You know, but they're drinking and smoking. Right, well, sure. Technical glitches aside, I think we'll watch this space. We'll come back again and reconvene. Thanks to all our fans out there that tuned in.
Yeah.
I'll just get it.
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing if Conor McGregor does run for presidency.
What do you think he made it?
Well, I think he's made a good start. You know what I mean?
Connor's making a point. So Zelensky needs to sit down in the talks. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Well, Zelensky, at the moment, I don't know if Zelensky's been invited to talk. He's out of it at the moment. It's bilateral, so it's just right in America at the moment. Zelensky's a big coming out of it.
Yeah.
He had a chance 3 years ago. We listened to Bojo.
Yeah.
But
I don't think it's a take up your point there about McGregor. I don't think he's got to get the presidency. I mean, I think, but he will certainly
did ever happen to get the final?
no. I might be wrong, but I think, but he would certainly get a vehicle for that opinion.
Yeah. It is funny that the lack of one is he always gets into hot water. He went to some Jewish event because they're going to talk about politics. I want to talk about Palestine now. Fucking terrible what you did. Not the wrong time, not the wrong way, but
Ireland was always difficult. You have to start it with the inception, but that was behind the setup of the state of Israel because it was like a country surrounded by hostile. You know,
if I like the fact that
we're getting feedback there, so
the other company the hotel was not a very subject. It's completely big paying that.
but it is funny that the size of a chicken in Ireland about that, you know, seems to flip 100%. But look, I think we get technical thing there, Gareth. We'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, sure. Thanks very much for coming on board again, and
Yeah.
we'll do it again. We'll get the thing sorted out a wee bit better.
Yeah.
And watch the space, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you again.
See you next time. Bye.
That was a